Good morning and good afternoon. I'm Kate Seeley, Vice President for Arts and Culture at the Middle East Institute, and I want to welcome you to today's screening and discussion with 4 Syrian filmmakers whose work has been exploring the impact of the Syrian conflict on people's lives. Now, today's program is co-sponsored with Bidayyat for audiovisual arts. It's a Beirut-based film and production company headed by one of our panelists, Mohamed Ali Atassi. Bidayyat was launched in 2013 to support and produce Syrian documentary films, to give voice to new artistic expression, and to tell the stories of ordinary Syrians who are living through the revolution and whose stories are not normally told by the media. Now, Bidayyat helped produce the 3 short films we're going to watch today. They played a tremendous role in giving a platform to alternative voices inside and outside Syria, and we'll be learning more about their role later in our discussion. Now, today's panel is part of our programming around a very powerful exhibit of contemporary Syrian art that MEI is showing in our gallery. The show is called In This Moonless Black Night, Syrian Art After the Uprising, and it features the work of 14 leading Syrian contemporary artists reflecting on the impact of the war on ordinary citizens. So if you're in DC, please check it out in our gallery, make a timed appointment, or check it out on our website. So we're going to watch 3 short films today, about 20 minutes in length, and then we'll have about a 45 to 50-minute discussion with the filmmakers in which we'll have a chance to take audience questions. So please be thinking about them while you're watching the films, and we're going to go to about 12:15 p.m. today. Now, with our programming, our film program, we're going to start with A Day in a Button, made in 2015 by Azza Abo Rebieh. And in this video, Azza walks the streets of Damascus, struggling to recognize her city. Azza is a multimedia artist and printmaker whose works tell the story of human survival. She has a degree in printmaking from the University of Damascus, and since leaving Syria in 2016, her prints and artwork have been widely shown and collected, including by the British Museum. And she also has work in our exhibition in Washington, DC. So welcome, Azza. Now that's going to be followed by a screening of 9.5 from Syrialism, whose real name is Omar Imam. His film explores Maha, who is 9.5 years old. She is the only survivor in her family, and she embarks on a surreal journey as a refugee. Omar is an Amsterdam-based visual artist and Rijks Academy alumni. In his sculptures, short films, and photographic works, which have been shown globally, he uses irony and a very conceptual approach to respond to war, its consequences and causes. And we're going to conclude with Samer Ajouri's animation, The Boy and the Sea, which tells the story of a young boy who finds refuge from the war at the bottom of the sea, only to find other challenges distorting his new reality. Samer is an independent filmmaker based in France. After working in Damascus as a video editor and an audiovisual art designer, working on music videos and documentaries, he left Syria in 2011, and he's currently a video journalist for Euronews. And I also want to introduce here Bidayyat founder Mohamed Ali Atassi, who's a journalist, producer, and an accomplished filmmaker in his own right. Under his guidance, Bidayyat has produced dozens of films, short and long, about the Syrian conflict. He himself has made several award-winning documentaries set in Syria, among them the brilliant and devastating My Terrible Country. Full disclosure, I have known Ali since my days as a journalist in Syria and Lebanon in the 2000s, and I have enormous respect for what he does, and I'm delighted to be hosting this program with Bidayyat. So thanks to you all for joining us today, for giving us your time, for telling us your stories. For those of us here in Washington, we know so little. It is such an honor, and without further ado, I'd like us to start our program of films. Thank you all and enjoy.
Kate, it's a problem with the voice. We can't hear the voice.
Yes, I can't hear the voice of the movie. مم.
مظاهرة طيارة ما لها علاقة بالطيارة، هو احتجاج بيخلص برصاصة من الأمن طيارة.
نلتقي اليوم في لحظة فاصلة في تاريخ بلدنا، لحظة نريدها بإرادتنا وتصميمنا أن تكون فاصلة بين أمس مثقل بالاضطراب والألم سالت فيه دماء بريئة أدمت قلب كل سوري، وغد مفعم بالأمل في أن تعود لوطننا أجمل صور الألفة والسكينة التي طالما نعم بها على أرضية متينة من الحرية والتكافل والمساواة.
ايه، أنا عم أمشي بنفس المطرح. لا، ما تغير. روق، أنت بالشام، بس هنن عندهم زينة تانية، هنن ما بتهمن هوية المكان.
نلتقي اليوم في لحظة فاصلة في تاريخ بلدنا.
يا ريتاني عسكري عالحاجز تحت بيته اسهر ليلي ونهاري بس لا اخذ
صحيح أنت حامل الهوية؟ لأنه ما فيك تمشي بلدك بلا هوية. ما عم أحكي عن هوية المكان، أنا عم أحكي عن هويتك المدنية اللي فيها وبلاها ممكن تعتقل. أنت من وين؟
المراحل الأخيرة من معركة تلميح حملة الجنود.
نلتقي اليوم في لحظة فاصلة في تاريخ بلدنا، لحظة نريدها بإرادتنا وتصميمنا أن تكون فاصلة بين أمس بالاضطراب والألم.
في بس 10 دقايق بين النظامي والمحرر. هوية المكان. انت بتهمك الأرض ولا الفكرة؟ طيب احنا هلأ على نفس الأرض، بس هون الناس بكوكب تاني، يمكن اختاروه ويمكن لا. هون في حالة جمعية، انقصفوا وتحاصروا وغرقوا لأنهم قرروا يكونوا إيد واحدة. بس الإيد الوحدة ما صفقت. ما عم أعرف هويتي، صار بدي فوت بمفاهيم تانية وأعطي تبريرات لأقنع حالي إنه عندي هوية. هلأ أنا معي هوية، بدي نام. بدي أرجع لسريري وقطتي.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali. May I begin again? Thank you for these very beautiful, powerful films. We were very moved by them and done in a spirit of experimental filmmaking, which I imagine gave you all more liberties to sort of dress and grapple with the issues you wanted to talk about. Now, before we begin our Q&A, I just want to begin by mentioning a few housekeeping notes to our audience. To submit your questions, please use Zoom's Q&A feature, which you can find on your Zoom screens. For those calling in by phone or watching our panel on live stream, you can ask questions by emailing events@mei.edu. And if you have any technical questions, also email events@mei.edu. Now, I want to start with Azza. Thank you, Azza, for that beautiful film. It takes us through a transformed Damascus. We're in regime Damascus, and then we go to a liberated Damascus, and you're playing off of the idea of identity, this notion that you have to have an identity card to get anywhere, but also you're playing with the idea of sort of having lost your identity or trying to find your identity in this transformed, unfamiliar landscape. So can you talk us through in more detail, really sort of the emotions and issues you were grappling with when you decided to make this film, and what it is you want to convey to the audience in showing us a glimpse of these two worlds through your film?
First of all, I want to thank you for having me and for this very beautiful idea to screen all these films. Yes, so I'm sorry a little bit for my language. My English is not that much good, so I will try to. So yeah, as you said about the identity, actually, when the revolution started, we just like want to rebuild our identity because you know, you can find the photos of the president everywhere. It's stuck on you, and you felt like you are not Syrian, you are an Assad something, and it's not about Syria. It's just like they really changed all the identity of the cities. You know, the cement and this checkpoints and these photos. So when the revolution started, we just like want to build our identity. So it's really, and they start to arrest or detain people for their where are they from? For example, if you are from Douma, which is near Damascus, and it's all you know, almost it was a very hot spot, like it's a protest all over, and so if you are from Douma, they will gonna take this person in jail wherever he did, like from Idlib, like from Homs, so it was really, Inta min wain, where are you from? And now, wherever, if you're Syrian, whatever. So, and also we are really want to build our identity as a Syrians without Assad. It's like 40 years, this, so it was like this philosophic things between really the card and our identity as a Syrians.
And I love that moment, and it's so fleeting. I don't know if everyone caught it, where you stop and you say, we're still in Damascus, and you pluck, I think, a jasmine flower.
Yeah.
Flower, and that flower to me sort of symbolizes Damascus. I mean, I have so many this flower, and to you, in a way, that's your identity. It's the beauty, right? That no one exists.
Yeah, it's that too, and also it's kind of a little bit as it's like a little bit like a joke, because some people like say, I mean, when they are really with the regime, they will say, no, we are fine, nothing happened, you know, come and see the jasmine. And sometimes it happens. So it's like kind of, you know, yeah, we are in the city of the jasmine, but look, after 10 minutes distance between Damascus and Douma, see the difference.
Right. Now, I imagine in making that film, you were taking quite a risk. I mean, we watch you put your camera into your purse, you hang it around your neck, you cover it with lace, you walk through the city, half the city seems almost normal, and the other half, of course, is bombed out. Can you tell me a little bit about the risk, you were taking in making this film or making films at that time? And, what was the emotional state you were in as you made this rather risky film, I imagine?
Well, it's actually very high risk. A lot of people and a lot of colleagues, they are really arrested because they have the camera. And our filmmaker, a friend, Basa Shhade, they killed him in Homs. He's a very talented director. So it's really a risk to have a camera, especially when I make a film in Douma, and when I cross Douma to Damascus, there was a lot of checkpoints, and I tried to hide it in any way. If they take it, they will consider me like I'm with the terrorist people, you know. It's not like people. They don't consider Dumanian as normal. They consider them as a, you know, yeah. So this is what the risk, and also the risk inside Damascus is more and more. I mean, I can't, and I mean, you cannot take your mobile and take photos or videos in that time, because there is a lot of checkpoints, and they feel fear if you take a photo for them. You know, it's very complicated. So I tried to do this a small bag, and I get this camera, GoPro camera, and it helps. It helps, yeah. It's because when I walked in Damascus, I felt like these things, and I want to really express these things, and also with my walk. I mean, this steps, this fear. I mean, it could transfer in this camera more than the professional camera. So you can feel this fear while walking. Yeah.
And your film concludes by you saying, I want to go back to my cat in my room. You just, I mean, is it a way you want to go to sleep? You want to, is it forget, just maybe and wake up in another world? Is that what you're saying at the end?
Yes, until now. Until now. This is what I really, the thing, like I feel safe when I be in the bed, because it's very hard to change everything. So it's like really, maybe in the bed and with my cat, I can imagine a better world, a better country, you know.
And I should just note to our audience that Azza did spend some time in a Syrian prison, and thankfully got out to make beautiful art for us to all see and understand her experience through her art. Thank you, Azza. Omar, you know, your photography, your video, because you're also a photographer, really capture the dignity of refugees, but through this surreal, absurdist lens. And we look at Maha, this 9.5-year-old girl, and she's clearly from a middle-class family. We have a refugee on a truck playing a violin. It looks like, you know, you're framing refugees in a very different light, in a way that we haven't seen in the West. So tell us a little bit more, because there's so many references in 9.5. There's so much to unpack. You know, tell us what what motivates this kind of framing, and you know, why this choice of absurdism and surrealism in telling Maha's story.
Hi, everyone. Well, I was questioning the line between fiction and documentary. So I started as a perspective of a little child, but then even after the film was done, I was questioning myself about this approach, about when it's real, when it's a dream, and when it's a fiction, and when it's real blood. You know, like we see them on the same screen, like now what happened in Palestine and Israel. And also you can always watch OSN movies or video games, and you see a lot of blood coming everywhere. So I wanted to know if a child can find out the difference about when we really need to leave the country and when it's just a Luna Park and we will come back home. Yeah, so the thing is, she lost her parents and she was looking for something, but it was not clear for her. The journey itself maybe is what she was looking for, and the friends she makes along the way.
And yet it's such it's such a fraught and dangerous journey, you know, as it is for all refugees fleeing Syria. You know, at one point we see her it's like, is this a Barney costume, carrying a gun, you know, marching her across the field? And the next thing we see, she's on her knees with a bridal veil. You know, somebody wants to marry her. And my favorite scene, of course, I think for all women, you know, was when she picks up the bubble maker and she blows it at him. You know, talk us through these images and how you came to them, and in a way, how, a little bit more about how this war has for you been so surreal.
Yeah, I mean, I was inspired for real with living with my daughter, who was like 3-4 years old at that time, and now I have 3 kids. So I'm always surrounded by toys and stuff and Barneys and all of those Teletubbies weird world. Yeah, so it was a time when ISIS was streaming a lot of videos trying to control the subconscious of.
Did Omar freeze?
No. Now, can you see me now?
I'm stopping because my video has frozen.
Oh.
We can see you, Omar. We can continue.
Okay. Yeah, so I was watching Barney and ISIS videos at the same time, or while I'm watching the news about ISIS crimes. My daughter is watching Dora the Explorer from her iPad at the same time, and they enter my brain at the same time. So I said, like, why not? Maybe it is the reality we live in. Can you see me, Ali? Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you.
Blink twice if you are in danger.
I still live, but I prefer Dora than ISIS.
Yeah, and you know, even Dora has a sniper, and she always asks him like, "Sniper, don't snipe him."
But my 2 boys, they prefer Diego, the cousin of Dora. Do you know Diego?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know everything about cartoon, and you know,
but you're not talking about your film. I don't know if you are live or in webinar or not, but in any case, talking about your film is not only about the story. My feeling when I saw this film again is not only about yourself and the story that you try to tell, but also this powerful image that you try to deconstruct the stereotype image by doing your own image. And Kate, you are here.
Excuse me. I mean, this is a technology in Washington, D.C. It's totally collapsed. I couldn't get on. But that's
it's fine. Like Ali picked it up from you, and
thank you, Ali.
Yeah.
You were talking. I mean, you picked it up from the ISIS.
Yeah, I mean, Ali asked about how I usually try to reconstruct and maybe redefine the terms and the stereotypes about what refugee is, or about what war can be. And I found it really essential to do, because now if you Google Syria, you will find billions of results. But they are based on 10 pictures or videos. And then everything is just a repeat. And like in my head, like, if we already know this about refugees, why do we need to make another documentary or another fiction? If I'm not making something new, I prefer like to sell pasta in the street than doing art and movies, because for me, if you are not creative, it doesn't work. And somehow journalists NGOs, politicians, propaganda makers. They really put the refugees in a very superficial two-dimension image, when it's only about the rubber boat or the mud. So I tried in this film, as long in my project, like to take the audience in this up and down feeling when you have a moment of like some playfulness, and but also some painful memory and experience, but without having a painful product, like visual product.
Yes.
Because if everything we see is blood and pain, I believe our brain will create kind of defensive mechanism not to observe those images anymore, and then we are not doing any help.
Yeah, that image of Maha and her mother and her father, that image alone just explodes, you know, all the stereotypes, right? I mean, you look at that image and you're like, these are my friends, my neighbor, you know, and it shouldn't have to be that way, right? We should make that assumption about every refugee, but as you said, they've been put into a box where they're given a blanket and put in a camp. And so, you know, by bringing Maha to life, and also by bringing to life what she has to experience as an orphan, right? You know, being married, attempted marriage, you know, at 9.5, was very, very powerful and painful, but also, you know, you did it in such a, I won't say beautiful way, but truly compelling way. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a journey for me as well. I learned a lot, and I experiment working with Ali and Bidayyat, which is such an experience as well.
Thank you. Samer, I'd like to move on to you, and hopefully my camera, my screen, my internet won't collapse. Of course, your animation is about a boy who dives into the sea to escape the misery of war, but suddenly finds himself confronted with these, you know, dark spaces. I mean, the video goes into a dark place, and there are multiple layers in this animation. I'd like you to help our viewers unpack the layers and understand kind of your references and also what motivated your short.
I think it's like I can start from the beginning. The kid was drawing. The child was drawing amidst all these war scene and war, the aftermath of what's happening around him. This is something I think I just wanted to focus first on, you know, the kind of maybe this separation that the kids go into when they start to draw, when they start to go to immerse, you know, themselves into doing something that is really that disconnects them from whatever that goes around them, which is something that had some impact on maybe on my thoughts, like when I was thinking about the media, how the media was handling the image of children, of immigrants, of refugees, of people who wanted just to escape the war, and the war itself, because this is, you know, the first let's say the first point of what I want to speak about. But I think the war becomes the background, and the boy and his story becomes the foreground of our film. I wanted to first I wanted to experiment with animation. So it's like, for me, it was a journey into a new tools, new experience, new ways to express myself, maybe, but also in that time, when I started thinking about the project, it was 2015. I was stuff around me, like the news and the images, and how the war changed those imageries that around us, the visuals that we see every day. That was maybe the basic point where I got the idea of just, you know, like, and the idea then transferred into a little film, a little animated film.
It's beautifully animated, but it's interesting because he dives into the water, and at first, he's at one with the fish. They're together. He's in sync. He transforms into a fish, and then suddenly it gets darker and darker, and before you know it, he's in a TV frame, and a weird fish is over him. I mean, what are you saying with this? You're critiquing kind of the distortion of the reality through the media. Is that what's happening?
I think instead of it's distorted. What we see of image, or the images we see, the visuals, the daily visuals of war is really distorted. It's like the war itself. And I think, yes, what I wanted more to have is a reflection of the little boy, reflection of myself, maybe, that I see myself in the little boy. When I made the film, I didn't have a son. Now I have a son, so it's kind of mixture of feelings. But for me, first, it was more of a reflection in both, in the both sense of the word reflection. It's about thoughts and about real reflection, what we see on, like when the light reflects from to make the images. And yes, it's distorted, and it's somehow reshaped into what we are going to like daily, how to consume the war daily. I think I chose sea and like the sceneries inside the sea because it's like it still is the escape. It's the way that people choose to escape the war. The first thing, and I think it's like between the sea, the water, and fire, we have this, this binary, this thing that we want to escape the fire by going to the sea, and maybe when the kid goes down and he starts to see his reflection as some sort of monster that was drawing up there. So yeah, I think there is it doesn't translate like to really like a real monster, as more like some sort of a distorted image of what we really are, and how the media construct these images for us.
And is there some reference to sort of Alain Kurdi here? The child whose media, whose image went viral, who washed up on the shores, and for a second everyone seemed to care, and then they didn't care anymore, right? We thought maybe that'd be a turning point. But when you see all those screens floating, in the sea, you also think of refugees and the refugees who don't make it.
He was in I was thinking of him. I was thinking of other victims. I was basically thinking of victims of escaping through the sea, and victims inside the war, inside those places, children and families living in torn places because of the war, because of the aftermath of the bombardment that happened maybe in northern Syria and multiple parts of Syria and other places around the world. So yes, it starts with a boy, with Alain Kurdi. It starts with him, and he's. I also thought that his image, his photo, I will say, because it's a photo. It's something materialistic that could make a difference. But alas, it went forgotten. Yeah.
Well, but there's, that's where Bidayyat comes in. So Ali, I'd like to bring you into the conversation, and you yourself are an amazing filmmaker in your own right. I have seen, almost all of your films, starting with your first film on Riyad the Turk back in 2001. But clearly you shifted to not just being a filmmaker, but creating a platform for others during the revolution. And tell us a little bit about what you were seeing inside of Syria at the time. What you saw was the need for this platform to help people kind of get these these messages out, these images out, and what was the role you saw of film and video playing during this conflict?
Hi, Kate. Thank you for inviting me and invite us. I'm so happy to be here and to see Azza, Samer, and Omar. It's great. And to see you, of course. Can I, before to answer your question, have just a small comment about the three films that we just...
Yes, please, Ali.
Okay, because I am very touched to see the three films one after the other. I think you did a great choice by choosing this three films, because for me it's three different styles, but also three different moments from our history with the revolution and with the uprising in the war. And it's three artists also, everyone with his point of view, his way of speaking about his creativity, about what he lived, etc. Then, with Azza, for me, I was very touched because it's this moment of the beginning of the uprising where people like Azza was really able to move between the different zones and taking risk and going to Douma to see Razan Zaitouni, or to film, or to work with the children, etc., to come back to Damascus. Then it's not the idea of Bidayyat to do this film, it's the idea of Azza, and the idea of Azza also to take the risk to document this crucial moment in her life and the life of her city. And the way how Azza tried to tell the story about her journey between the liberate zone and the zone under the Bashar al-Assad control, it's tell a lot about also this lot of activists, young artists who try really to do something at this moment when the Syrian uprising was a peaceful movement, and people like Azza and other and Razan try a lot to work between the two areas. But the way how Azza film and bring the image from the other side and tell her own story with the GoPro about Damascus itself, also for me it's a different way to deconstruct the propaganda of the regime and what they are saying, that the other places only terrorists, etc. There is no chemical attack, is nothing there, is no destruction at the time. There was speaking that is then Azza, she took the risk to go and to move and go back with this image and to tell the story, and we put it online at the time, but Azza, it was already inside Syria. And later on, as you mentioned, because of her activities and her work, etc., she went to jail, and I'm very happy that today she is between us in Beirut, and she continued her work with the painting and other style. Then, Azza, she worked on with videos, she worked with film, but also with painting, trying to explore different ways to tell her own story and with her own point of view. But again, when I see the film of Omar, it's the other period when the refugees arrived to Beirut, to Lebanon. And I remember when Omar arrived to Beirut, the first thing that he started to do is to go to the Bekaa, try to look differently, bring different image, etc. And again, it was the idea of Omar to try to tell the story in this way. It was a kind of challenge. I can say to Bidayyat also what we was trying to do at the time, doing the classical documentary film, feature documentary, and Omar came with this very special way of bringing the image and storytelling in different way, and he tried really to deconstruct all this image that the media at the time was putting online everywhere about the refugees, etc. And I am very touched when I see today all these images and the way that he did it, Omar, that it's still very actual today. How today, when we look to the refugees, because the crisis is still there, and the refugees, they are in the Bekaa Valley. But then through the image and the way of Omar and how he tells the story, it allowed me really to take, as I say, distance and to look differently to this reality. And I mean, the third moment, and with the third film of Samer, is the moment where 1 million of Syrians took the sea and went to Europe, abroad, etc. Then I remember very well that at this time, Samer wrote something very strong on the Facebook about how the media deal with the image of Alan, the Kurdi, and very critique. And I asked him if he can write an article for our website and film, and he was not with us in Beirut. He was already abroad in France, and he was able to really to do something, from my point of view, great in the sense that I know that Samer, he don't like to connect his film to Alan because it's go beyond Alan, but he was very strong to tell also from his point of view how the story of Alan affect us and one another without using any I would say any image related to Alan directly. But when I see this film, for me, it helped me a lot to have this critique point of view about how the media try to create this iconic image. In the end, nothing has happened. And Kate, I like to say, because it's truly a moment of our modern history as a Syrian, but I think the first moment is today, because you are sitting here, and Azza is in Beirut, Samer is in France, and Omar is in Netherlands. Then it's also about the Syrian diaspora. This is what part of their work in different places in different way, and they. We are people of exiled people, but we keep Syria with us in a way or another, and it's reflected in our work. When I see the work of Omar, in Amsterdam, we can see that nothing to do with Syria, but when you work about your 3D in Beirut or in Damascus, still within it, keep it within it, you try to move beyond, but it's there. And same with Azza and Samer. This is our reality in another way, that we are today in exile. Not all of us, we still, a lot of friends still live inside Syria, but also a lot of the artists and the filmmaker, they was forced to move in exile. Then when it comes to Bidayyat, to go back to your question, Bidayyat, it's a kind of, it's a civil company, it's a no-profit civil company. We work, we did a lot of workshop for training for emergent artists, but also we help into production. But also at the end, it's a place where every one of us try to mix, to exchange, and to create. But it was a moment of the life of Beirut when a lot of young activists, artists, emergent filmmakers come by Beirut thinking that this is a moment where they can spend a couple of months and we can go back to Syria. At the end, we discovered that it will be a long journey, and the majority of them, they move to Europe because the condition in Beirut is very difficult for Syrians. And this is also why I think that for Bidayyat, it played an important role at some moment, because everybody was here, but today everybody move abroad, and this is also time to turn the page. Then, we play with other structure here in Beirut, rule to give support and to create space where we can exchange and we can create, we can use, we can create art, cinema, etc. Dealing with our trauma, with our actuality, etc., but in artistic and cinematographic way. Today, the condition in Beirut is very difficult, and I think this is time also I become older and I should think about something else to do. But also I think for Bidayyat, it's the end of the period, and I am so happy to see that every artist, every filmmaker, who live abroad, he can continue with his creation, and life continue.
Well, thank you, Ali. And look, older and wiser, and we all have a lot ahead of us. I want to wrap with, the filmmakers' perspectives. I mean, you mentioned the role of exile. Everyone is now in exile. Azza, Omar, Samer. You now are looking at Syria from a very different lens. The time is different. I mean, it's not 2015, which arguably was it maybe a more hopeful time, or 2017. It's, it's 10 years into the conflict, and it remains the world's largest humanitarian crisis. So let's start with Azza. From this position of exile, Azza, what are the stories you want to tell now? I mean, what motivates you to keep telling stories, and has your audience changed? Has your framing changed? What's on your mind right now?
Well, I will tell you at the moment what I feel, because at this day now, the election of Assad is starting here and also in Beirut. It's very, very hard really to live this moment. I mean, he will gonna really will win for sure in these elections. Now my feeling is like really, I mean, I cannot really have an idea what Syria will gonna be if Assad is still there. I mean, I don't have any hope if Syria still under the Assad regime control. So, but I still have, for sure, I hope, I mean, I'm waiting for this moment to see Syria, as we know, many cultures, many languages, many religions. It's a very beautiful country, very rich in the cultural things. And I don't know. I just want to say that we will wait for this moment. We will gonna fight. We will build our memory. We will not gonna forget what our country is. Wherever we will be, wherever we were. I mean, so yeah. I mean, this is the way that we choose, and we have to continue. No go back. And yeah, I mean, this is the moment I'm really live to reach. I mean, if there is no this moment, I don't want to live anymore. Yeah.
The work, Azza, reflects your resilience. It reflects, your will to keep telling stories and to keep, hope alive through stories. I'm going to actually jump in here to you, Azza, with a question from our audience relating to Douma, which, obviously you're reflecting in your film. She wants to know, and this is for everyone, what is the situation of Douma right now since the defeat of the armed opposition? What has the end of fighting meant to the people there? Maybe could you address that very briefly before we get on to asking Omar and Samer their thoughts?
So Douma now, it's under the regime control, for sure. They evacuate most of the people to Idlib, which they are, it's, and most of the streets are really destroyed, and buildings. It's a very miserable life, but it's under the regime control. It's a very hard situation now in Douma. I mean, in the revolution, it was it was hard. There was no electricity, nothing, but there was a power, and this kind of the power of the people there, that they want to get their freedom. Different, They don't care about food, no, they don't care about electricity, but they want to live their dignity. Now is really very different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's they cannot, you know, fight the giant rocket at the end of the, you know.
Thank you, Azza. Omar, what about for you, from your perspective, you know, in exile? You know, how do you look back on Syria? What voice do you have now that you want to express through video and film? And who do you want to tell your stories to now?
Well, first, I don't feel I'm living at exile in the Netherlands, so I feel home now. Actually, I believe I used to live in the exile in Syria back in the days. So I do have an insider perspective. But it's something to do with my vision, even like before the war or revolution. Like I always felt like a citizen of the world. For sure, I am attached to the people in need in Syria, and I am a torture survivor myself. So my priority is people under torture. I mean, who are still under torture or who are suffering from trauma. And this is what Syria is for me now. Like if I can help in any possible way the narrative of those people. And for sure, I like to redefine the term refugee. But I worked a lot in this, so I had 2 photography projects and 2 sculpture work, and the last sculpture was 3.5 meters high, 400 kilometers, and it ended up in the museum. So I don't know if I'm going to continue in the same topic, but in general, I just like to make the world better place for my daughter, and I like to entertain myself. So if I'm not having any fun in my art project, then I just quit.
Well, you're still working and still telling very important stories. I mean, about, as you said, refugees, about trauma. These are stories that we need to keep hearing, to keep remembering. And for you, Samer, what, you know, from your perspective in France, you look back on Syria, you know, how far do you feel, how close do you feel, you know, what inspires you right now? Or do you feel after 10 years of this, you know, terrible conflict that, you know, that you've said what you can say? What do you feel?
I don't think I can reach a point where I say like I said everything, or I just I'm going to stop. But the thing is, like 10 years ago, since 10 years when I ran away from Syria, it was and I went through these steps of exile. It wasn't I wasn't sure of everything around me. It was a sense of confusion, and because also, as what Ali was saying, like we are growing up, so it's like this adds to the confusion. Is it because I'm growing up, or is it because I'm away from my homeland? So I think it's I cannot stop. I cannot not think about Syria. It's always there. But since now I'm also in this this huge machine that the media machine that I was once speaking about in my movie, and I'm being a critique to this huge machine. I'm now part of it, because now I'm working in Euronews, which is like really huge media machine. I want also, I always have this hope that I can make some difference, either by art, by telling stories, by just telling the news, by showing the news. I think I can say that I'm trying to search for these differences that I can make, and they for sure they connect me to Syria, but also they connect me to other parts of the world that have the same pain, and this is, I hope that I can make any difference.
Ali, what about Bidayyat now? I mean, what's happening? Can you talk a little bit, just in some, we're going to wrap up soon, just what's happening inside Syria among activists and, you know, filmmakers and people wanting to get messages out? Are you still working inside Syria? Has this just been squashed by the, the last couple of years of obviously the regime sort of, return to total dominance? I mean, what are your communications inside Syria? What are you seeing, and how do you continue to support those with work inside the country?
What is a little bit sad when it comes to our situation here in Beirut regarding what happened also what happened inside Syria, that the last 2 years the traveling between Beirut and Damascus become so difficult. One of the reasons is the corona, but the other reason was a lot of restriction. The Lebanese authority puts a lot of restriction to the entry of Syrian to Lebanon. Then we lost a little bit the contact with inside Syria. I know that you have a lot of young artists, filmmakers who try to work from within. But what is a little bit sad is that it's a lot of fear today, because the regime went war and he is establishing kind of state of terror. Then to what Azza tried to do, and other people, perhaps today, other young people try to do it, but it's very difficult to break this image outside the country, and to perhaps we should wait a little bit and we'll show up again. But when it comes to myself, really, because I don't have any contact anymore, because we usually did a lot of workshop with people coming from Damascus to Beirut. Today is not possible anymore. But I want to say something when it comes to our situation. Omar, you say that you are a citizen of the world. I understand completely, and I like your capacity to take distance. The problem, I hope that the European and the Netherlands people, they will consider you as part of the citizens of the world. I'm scared that no matter what we will do, they will continue to look to us as a Syrian, as the refugees. And it's good that we can try to escape or to do something vis-a-vis of that, but this is in a way or another the reality of ourselves. I'm living in Beirut since 20 years, and they continue to look to me as a Syrian. I am a Syrian, and I speak with my accent, etc. But what is important today, from my point of view, Kate, is, the regime win the war, but he should not win the narrative, and this is our rules today as an artist, as a filmmaker, as an intellectual, to tell our story. It's not about defending any ideology or defending. It's about really tell our story and not allow the Assad regime or any other extremist force to establish a fake narrative about what's happening in Syria, because it's about the Assad regime, but also about the Islamists and how it started in Syria and other places in the Arab world as part of the Arab Spring. We had an aspiration of freedom, democracy, individualism, a lot of things, but they stole our revolution, but we should not allow them to steal our stories, and this is why the art, the film, the painting, help a lot to keep this memory alive. Omar, he can work on his two daughters, his son, but in a way or another, part of their story is connected to what happened to you, Omar, as you say, when you was tortured in Syria, or what happened in Beirut and other places. And then this is why I was saying that we keep that within us, and it's important to keep this narrative alive. This is the only way, to. Otherwise, as I say, I mean, he will win the election, but for sure, but he should not win the narrative.
And that is just a beautiful point and a beautiful way to conclude that this is, in fact, the point of Bidayyat and the work you do is to, craft your narrative, a narrative that reflects your reality, that humanizes and deepens everyone's understanding. And this will serve as an archive for us to look back on and remember that there were these voices telling the other story that we must never forget. So I have a final comment from a viewer saying she's so incredibly inspired by your incredible films, by your incredible courage, and she thanks you for sharing these with all of us. And I join her in thanking you all for your insights, your views, your courage, and being with us today. So goodbye to you all, and we'll be in touch. And please come and find this on the internet after the fact. We'll send out the links. And thanks to our audience.